Coming from a small country, it is important to see if you can reach an audience that's not like within your own neighborhood. That's a great feeling to find that what you write translates. Last night, my dad let me flick the light switch until the bulb blew and we had to eat dinner by candlelight. He wasn't cross because I'd learned something. Have you ever seen electricity? I shake my head. We know it's in the wires, but we can't see it. And yet people believe it exists. The television sets would die without electricity. Imagine them just sitting there staring. Yeah. He laughs and I laugh with him. Just because something's hard to see doesn't mean it's not there. I was very bad in school. I wasn't very good in school. So if I had paid attention in school, I would be able to speak French and Spanish, maybe even a little German. But I only speak English. So being published in English is very important to me. It's like the only translation I've been able to read of one of my books. If you write about something you haven't experienced yourself, you do need the research to get your facts straight. But mainly and more so, I think it's important to place yourself there, put yourself in the middle of it. And that's really what I try to do every time I write.
Jonas T. Bengtsson is Danish and arrived as a fully formed literary star with his first novel, Amina's Letters, in 2005. Then came Submarino, which is a very raw and disturbing portrayal of Copenhagen's underworld. His third novel, A Fairy Tale, is the first to be translated into English. It came out in 2011 in Denmark. It's just been published here published in Canada and the US, and it's been translated by Charlotte Barsland. Welcome onto the stage, Jonas T. Bengtsson. Now, I noticed that there's a T in there, Jonas T. Is that because it's an American publisher?
Actually, they wanted to change it in Australia because they thought the T would make Australians think that I was American.
So do we have to call you Jonas T, or?
No, you can call me whatever you want.
Right, but I think we're not very good on the Jonas T, or we can call you Jonas Jr. if you like. But anyway, it's great to have you here. And again, when I say these books and I say how good they are, I absolutely believe it. I mean, to have got also to this stage, these books are superlative books. They'll all be on sale afterwards, by the way, and all the authors will be here. So do read them all. Let's talk generally about your books before we talk just about this one too, because this is our first in English. But to give us a little bit of background about the other two, did you have a grand plan when you started writing? Did you say I was going to write in a particular style or write about particular people, about outcasts or mental patients or prisoners, or how did you decide to write the way you do?
I really just needed to do something, I needed a job, and I needed...
You didn't have a job when you started writing?
I had a sort of a job. I worked at the Gallup Institute, where you call people and bother them. Yes, it's sort of a job, yeah, it's sort of. I did the phoning. I suppose other people in the Gallup Institute might have like more real jobs than that, but it made me work at night, which I preferred, and when I got home I had drunk like 2 liters of black coffee, so I couldn't sleep. And then I found that writing would calm me down, and I really didn't know what to do with my life. So my first novel was about a schizophreniac. I am pretty happy that I don't suffer from any mental illnesses, but this was my way of like taking the outsider position or feelings I had at that point in time, and then enlarging, making them bigger.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you really see yourself as an outcast?
I do. And
why?
I have really no idea. I mean,
you don't feel you fit in?
That is it. And I've never felt that I fit in, really. And I have no real excuse for it being a white male in Copenhagen. But I would love to have an excuse for it. I'd love to have something that was different about me, that what I could pinpoint. That's why I don't fit in. But it has always been a feeling for me that I didn't fit in. It took me ages to become part of the Danish Writers Union, or Writers Guild, because that would be somewhere where I would actually fit in. So. But
you're happy being a writer.
I am.
This is what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But the reason we talk about outcasts and being different is because everything you write about is about people on the edges of society. So tell us about a fairy tale, because it is a fairy tale. There is a fairy tale involved, but it is mainly about a father and a son, and they are on the run. They live on the edges of society. Tell us about this book.
I wrote this when I was going through my divorce. I started writing it before my divorce started, and then kind of like overlapped. And the basic idea in the story was that, came about that I was listening to my son snoring, and I realized that he was about 2 years old at the time, that he completely trusted me at this age. And I'm not, he's 8 now, so. But when
he's 8?
Yeah, he's 8.
He's 8. But the boy in the book starts at 6, at the age of 6.
Yes. But basically, I got the idea that this sort of responsibility that we have as parents is not just about feeding our children and maybe giving them enough love, but it's also about the kind of image we present to them of the world. We kind of give them a world to live in with values. And that interested me because I try to give my son like decent, good social values. I want him to have friends, and I want him to be able to maneuver around Danish society. But if I distrusted the Danish society, I would give him different values. Or I would homeschool him. I would teach him how to get by in a world where you can't trust anybody. And that was the basic idea that kind of was the starting point of this.
And of course, in this book, the boy, the whole book is told from the boy's point of view, which is an absolutely fascinating perspective, because he starts at the age of 6 in 1986, which, as you'll all know, in fact, 2 of the books we have tonight are set in 1986. Wonderful coincidence. But and the very first sentence is something like, I was 6 when Olof Palme was shot, was assassinated. So he is seeing his father, who is the main other person in his life, and the whole of society from his perspective as a little boy, 1986, and he gets older, into his 20s. So why do you, for instance, why do you see it all from his perspective? Why don't you give the father, who is in many ways the main figure, why don't you give him a voice?
That would have been too easy. I think that
even though the whole story is about him.
It was very difficult to write about somebody else. I deeply admire how the Sherlock Holmes novels, because they're about somebody else, told from the perspective of Dr. Watson. It is very difficult to write about somebody else who's actually doing most of the actions. But with this book, I found it necessary I found that to be the most interesting perspective. And I found it would be, and it was very difficult to keep that perspective. But I thought, and I still believe that was the most intense perspective as well.
I mean, I don't think it's giving too much away if we say that the father is, the relationship between the father and the son is central to the whole book. It is very, very close, and you find out quite soon that the father actually has a mental illness. But the little boy doesn't obviously realise that. Try to describe the relationship between the father and son and what it does to the son as he grows older, because it's the legacy of what parents give children, isn't it, too, which you're talking about in this.
It definitely is. I think that it is a very intense and strong father-son relationship, and the son grows up with the feeling that they are alone in the world. His father and they are alone in the world.
And they're on the run, and the little boy doesn't know why. He doesn't have friends, he doesn't go to school. The father teaches him, but he doesn't quite understand why he's not allowed to go to school.
Yeah. That was like, maybe it's 10 years ago. There was this man who wanted to send a bomb to the Icelandic singer Björk. And he did videotapes of himself doing the preparations. I think there's a documentary out there about it. And what really fascinated me about this guy was that for him this seemed like the right thing to do. Like sending a bomb to Björk would for him be the only right thing to do. So it kind of interested me in the way we shape our own personal worlds, the values, our personal values, and the sort of very small microcosmos of the father and son and their values given from the father to the son, where they might be the only two people in the world with these exact set of values. And then it interested me how the son could move on from that point and use as much of the knowledge his father has given him, but at the same time becoming himself, basically.
Where does the idea of the fairy tale come from?
My first two novels, I wrote them as Greek tragedies set in a modern Copenhagen. So this time around, I felt like having a sort of form again, but this time around, I felt like it should be the fairy tale. And I love the idea that I could kind of marry these two ideas in these two worlds, because it was all seen from the perspective of the child, where everything or everyday life might seem like a fairy tale. And also, he has a father who wants to turn the everyday life into something else.
And there's a real fairy tale in there as well, because the father's telling the boy a fairy tale all the time. We can't tell you too much about this, because there's a very, very important turning point in the middle of the book, which we're not going to say anything about, but it is a story that develops and unfolds, and as I say, you see it all from the boy's point of view. Would you be kind enough to read a passage for us?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Does it need any explanation, or are you going to read from quite near the beginning?
This is actually the first couple of pages. So the only explanation we need, and we might not even need that, is this takes place in 86. I've just turned 6 when Olof Palme is shot. It's the 1st of March and very cold outside. My dad and I are sitting in the kitchen. We're eating crusty rolls for breakfast, and I'm drawing. We hear it on the radio. My dad turns up the volume. The woman on the radio sounds as if it's important, big news. I chase a poppy seed across the table with my fingernail. Then my dad tells me to get dressed. I can't find my socks. My dad bends down and sticks my bare feet into my wellies. We walk down the street. My dad holds me by the arm. He's looking straight ahead, dragging me along. I've become luggage, a suitcase on small wheels. I tell him that it hurts, that I can't keep up, but the wind blows away my words. There are always lots of people out and about on a Saturday, cars going in and out of carports, elderly women with grocery bags doing last-minute shopping before everything shuts. But not today. Today we have the road to ourselves. It's not a big town, and we soon reach the main street. My dad looks straight ahead. His mouth is just a line across his face. I think he has forgotten his holding my arm. My dad has shoulder-length blonde hair with the same reddish tint as his beard. He shaves once a week and lets it grow in between. He cuts his hair with a pair of scissors in the kitchen. The cigarette is an extension of his hand, an extra joint on his finger. He wears only a t-shirt under his coat, which is always open, but he's never cold. It's rare for him to feel the cold. I'm always cold. I look like him, I think. When I grow up, I won't shave either. He says I look more like my mom, but it's a good thing. She was beautiful. I tell him that when I grow up, I'll only shave once a week like him, but again the wind takes my words, tears at the branches and shakes the trees, whistles down the drain pipes. We reach the town's only television shop. The TV sets in the windows all show the same picture, some in color, others in black and white. We've already walked through the door, but my dad doesn't let go of me until we stand in front of a wall of screens, big and small ones, price tags with long numbers. When the lady on the television turns her head or glances down at her papers, the ladies in all the televisions copy her movements. It reminds me of a game we played in nursery school in another town. The shop assistant is standing next to us. He wears a striped shirt with a name tag and is staring at one of the TV sets, his mouth hanging slightly open. An elderly woman has put down her shopping bags and hasn't noticed that 4 apples have rolled out. My dad looks around as if he's searching for something. He finds it hard to make up his mind. Finally, he opts for a huge color television in the center. The sound is already loud, but he turns it up even more. Then my dad stands very still too. I'm convinced that the first person to move has lost the game. The television shows images of a dark street, road signs and snow, Stockholm. A sidewalk has been condoned off with red and white plastic tape. People have gathered behind it. They too are standing very still. Some are clasping their mouths. The woman in the television speaks very slowly, as if she has just woken up. She says that Olof Palme came out of a cinema not far from here, that he was with his wife, that they had been to see the film The Mozart Brothers and were on their way home. On the grey pavement are dark stains that look like paint. The camera zooms in on them. It's blood, my dad says, never once taking his eyes off the screen. We're back in the street. We walk quickly as if rushing away from the images on the television. I think we're heading home until we turn right by the closed-down butchers toward the harbor, down a narrow cobbled street. My dad sits down on an iron girder. I sit down beside him as close to him as I can get. The water in front of us is black. A couple of fishing boats are sailing into the harbor. There's a huge crane to our right. Its hook hangs just above the surface of the water. The sky is gray. My dad hides his face in his coat sleeve. I hear loud sobs through the thick fabric. He squeezes my hand so hard that it hurts. They got him, he says. The bastards finally got him. I don't remember ever seeing my dad cry. I ask him if Palme was someone he knew, but he makes no reply. He holds me tight. My feet are freezing in the wellies. They got him, he says. The wind whips the sea into foam. I think we're going to have to move again.